name is Derek, and back in high school, something unexplainable happened to my friends and I. I'm 36 now, and if I'm ever asked what's the scariest thing that's ever happened to me, this is it. It was summer of 2003, and my friend Nate and I decided to head over to Trevor's house. Trevor had a really nice house, along with a pool, and with the days reaching over 100 degrees, it was where we spent most of our time. Trevor's house was at the end of a long dirt road with nothing but an empty field behind it. Nate and I arrived at 7 p.m., and the three of us enjoyed the refreshing pool well past sundown. Around 10:30 or so, the temperature dropped significantly. That's when the three of us got out of the water and decided to build a fire. There was a fire pit at the edge of the pool deck that overlooked the empty, wide-open field. It felt secluded, almost to the point as if we were camping. Not a bad setup for a few high school kids. We spent the next few hours BSing about girls and our upcoming school year, while smoking Swisher Sweets because that's what us cool kids do. It wasn't long after I felt lightheaded from my cigar that Trevor stops still and says, "Did you hear that?" "Hear what?" Nate says. I told Nate not to amuse Trevor. Trevor was notorious for always joking around and pranking people, sometimes taking it too far if you ask me. Trevor shushes me and insists he's serious. He said he heard a whistling noise. Not sure who could have been whistling. There was no one else even close to us. The nearest house was half a mile away. None of us heard anything after that, including Trevor. So we went back to what we were doing. Not even 2 minutes later, I hear it this time. We all hear it. It was a whistle that sounded like this. The three of us stared at each other, eyes wide open. It was coming from somewhere off into the empty field. Since we could hear it, it must be close. I nervously called out, "Hello?" It was dead silent. Only thing you could hear was the crackling from the fire. We all slowly walked over to the edge of the deck. Where the deck ends, there's a 15-foot drop straight down. It was pitch black and we had no flashlights. We couldn't see anything looking off the deck, and with our bonfire, we were easily visible to anyone that was out there. Instead of calling out hello as I did, Trevor mimics the whistle that we heard. We stood there for a moment, as if we were expecting a reply. And we did. Somewhere from the dark abyss below, we hear. We all three jumped in fear. Trevor sprints back towards the house, and Nate and I follow. Once we're all inside and locked the door behind us, we're out of breath, panicked, wondering who that could have been, and are they coming after us? We looked through the back window, hoping not to see a dark figure climb their way onto the deck. I must have stood by the window for a good 45 minutes. After not seeing anything, I started to calm down. We all calmed down. We began to make light of the situation, trying to convince ourselves that if there really was someone out there, they were just messing with us and wouldn't actually do anything. Later we laid down on the couch, where we planned to sleep, and put on a movie. Halfway through the movie, Nate had fallen asleep. Trevor and I were dozing off as well. Sometime around 1:30 in the morning, we heard the doorknob to the front door begin to rattle. That jolted me and Trevor out of our half sleep to fully awake. From the couch, we can see directly to the front door, and we can see the handle shaking violently. Who or whatever we heard from before is now trying to get into the house. Trevor and I freak out, which awakens Nate to the situation. We all three very nervously walk over to the door, with the handle still shaking sporadically. There wasn't a peephole to look through to see who it was, but there was a huge bay window off to the side where I was hoping to get a good look at who it was. But there was a large pillar obscuring my view. I decided to stay where I was because when the person decides to leave, I would get a good view of what they looked like. Trevor and Nate stood in front of the door yelling, asking, "Who are you? What do you want?" After a moment of no response, the door handle begins to move all the way down, and the door is trying to be pushed open. The lock to the handle was unlocked, but thank God the deadbolt wasn't, preventing whoever was on the other side from getting in. This sent Trevor running into his dad's room, waking him up, telling him about a potential break-in. I remain by the window, keeping one eye outside, and the other eye sees Trevor's dad come stomping towards the door wearing only his boxers and holding a gun. Without warning or hesitation, he unlocks the deadbolt and swings the door open. But there's no one. I'm waiting to hear something, because I hadn't seen anyone run away yet. When they said there's no one there, I didn't believe them. I know there was a pillar blocking my view from the front door, but once someone would walk away, I would see them. There was no escaping that. There was a small walkway that leads up to the front, and there's no other way to leave besides me being able to see them. This didn't make any sense. Trevor's dad walks around the property searching for someone, but found nothing. I tried to explain to everyone. I stood looking through the window the entire time, and no one left. The door was rattling, and no one left. We all seemed to interpret this in our own ways. Trevor skittishly told me that he believed it to be a demonic spirit of some kind. That was hard for me to wrap my head around. That was something I refused to believe. I didn't want to acknowledge something like that even existed. But I'll admit, I don't have a better explanation than that. Have you ever had something happen to you that you can't explain? No logical reason can answer what happened? Everything that I've experienced in my life makes sense, except for this. I will most likely die not knowing exactly what happened that night. This took place 5 years ago when I was in high school. I lived with only my mom, and she worked basically the graveyard shift. Usually didn't get home until 4 in the morning. She left for work just before 8 p.m. It was the summer, and since there was no school, I just planned to watch TV and play video games for the night. Around 9 p.m., there was a knock at the front door. It was a guy that lives somewhere in the neighborhood that always walks his dog at this time, and he alerts me that my garage door is open and that I should be careful because there have been reports of theft and even one break-in nearby. I've known from before that this guy somewhat sees himself as the neighborhood watch. He can be off-putting to some, but I think he was just trying to be helpful. My garage door should be closed anyways. My mom must have forgot to close it when leaving for work. I thanked him promptly and closed it. Approximately 20 minutes later, when playing video games, I was thirsty and went into the garage to get a soda from the spare fridge. When doing so, I noticed that the dome light from my car was on. This was really odd. I didn't even drive my car that day, and I never even used my dome light. I turned it off immediately, hoping it didn't already drain my battery. I went back to playing video games, still wondering how that could have happened. 45 minutes later, I hear what I believe to be the sound of my garage door opening. The living room is adjacent to the garage, and I just so happened to be in between levels at that time, so I could hear it. I opened the door that leads into the garage, and sure enough, the garage door is now wide open. This made no sense. I didn't push the button. My mom isn't home to open it. Could the door just have malfunctioned, I thought? It never malfunctioned before. I couldn't think of a good explanation. I pushed the button, stood there, and watched the garage door close all the way. I went back inside, dumbfounded as to how this happened. I looked online for answers and read about some thieves have a special universal remote that will open most all garage doors. I really hoped this wasn't the case. I took extra precautions that night and decided to lock the door between the garage and the living room. My mom and I never locked that door, but it was a good thing that I did. I turned in unusually early that night. My bedroom actually sits above the garage, and on certain nights that I wasn't sleeping well, I could hear the opening of the garage when my mom was home from work. Because of the strange things that happened, I wasn't sleeping well. After what seemed to be hours of tossing and turning, I heard the garage door open. Oh, my mom's home already, I thought. But I looked at the clock, and it was 1:45 in the morning. This was really early for her. I stayed in my bed waiting to hear her footsteps coming up the stairs. But 10 minutes go by, and nothing. I get up and head downstairs. Once I'm in the living room, I stop and listening to a rummaging sound. We have a 3-car garage where we park too, and there's other random items placed off to the side for easy storage. I was thinking, what the hell is my mom looking for at this time? I opened the door into the garage to ask her, but it wasn't my mom that I saw. It was a skinny, middle-aged man with severe meth mouth. I was startled and terrified out of my mind when I saw him, but he wasn't. He appeared to be angry when he saw me, and beelined it directly towards me. I shut the door quickly and locked it, and this lunatic starts screaming in an eerie, high-pitched tone and begins pounding the door. I run to get my cell phone from upstairs in my room to call police. Even from upstairs, I could hear the loud, woman-like screams from below, but all of a sudden, it stops. I don't dare to open the door until police arrive. Once they do, the guy is gone. They canvass the neighborhood in hopes to find him, but no luck. Police asked me to look around for any items that might be missing. I didn't notice much out of place in our storage area, but when I looked in my car, which wasn't locked by the way, since it was always in the garage, I didn't see a need to. There was some spare change missing in my center console. I was relieved that that was it, but I noticed on my driver's side visor, the remote to the garage door was gone. I started to put the puzzle together. My mom must have left the garage open when leaving for work. The meth-mouthed man must have snuck in looking for something to steal, took the remote from my car, and decided to come back at a later time when he thought I would be sleeping and not going in and out to get sodas. That's just my theory. The next day, my mom had a new garage door unit installed. She felt terrible for leaving the door open. I'm grateful that I locked the door. I don't know for sure, but I think he might have tried to get into the house. This story is from the perspective of a female. In 2007, during my senior year of high school, I threw a party at my house. My parents were out of town and didn't know anything about it. To this day, they still don't know anything about it. The day leading up to it, I told all my friends about the party, time and place, and how awesome it was going to be. I was a little naive to think that there was going to be around 15 to 20 people. I only directly invited 10 of my closest friends. I assumed they might invite some people, but once word got around, there was no stopping it. My house wasn't that big, and I would guess 75 people showed up. I became concerned about how dirty the place was going to be and hoped nothing got broken. But like I said, my parents never found out, so on that aspect, it worked out fine. After many drinks and it being 3 a.m, I called the party over and kicked everyone out. Everyone except my best friend Josie. I planned on her staying that night to help me clean the house the next day. She was the more responsible one of us. She had a drink or two that night. I, on the other hand, partied too hard and just wanted to sleep. We both slept together in my parents' room since they had a large king-size bed. I fell asleep instantly. Josie, though, did not. I was awoken from her shaking me by the shoulder. She tells me, "I hear something coming from the closet. What is that?" I think I only mumbled something as my response. I understood what she said, but completely disregarded it and went back to sleep. Moments later, Josie wakes me up again. She whispers to me in a frightened tone, "Someone is in the closet. We need to get out of here." Again, I shrugged it off and didn't budge. Josie gets out of bed and pulls me by the hair to follow her. This is when I took her seriously. This was out of character for her. We go into my bedroom and I lock the door. I asked her exactly what happened. There was someone in the closet. The coat hangers were making noises. There's someone in there. She was visibly shaken. I was scared too. We lay down in my bed, thinking maybe it was just one of our friends playing a prank on us. 5 minutes of Josie and I being scared and anxious. Someone tries to open the door. We both screeched in terror, instinctively putting the covers over us, as if that was going to protect us. Locking the door was the best decision I made that night. Whoever was on the other side stopped trying to open the door. There was a lull of silence. Then I felt my cell phone vibrate in my pocket. I looked to see who was calling me at this hour. It was Josie. I showed Josie that she was calling me. She said she left her cell phone in the other bedroom. I didn't answer the call. Then she calls me again. My heart is running a million beats a minute. I looked at Josie and said, "I'm gonna answer it." I open my phone. Scared out of my mind, I say, "Hello?" Then a deep, sinister voice says,
"Open the door.
"The police are already on their way." Then I hang up. Of course I hadn't called anyone. I was completely bluffing. There was a brief moment of silence. Then I hear footsteps quickly run down the stairs, and the front door slams. Josie and I stayed in my room, not moving a muscle until sunrise. Josie opened the door first, where she found her cell phone on the ground. Whoever was there was gone. We checked around to make sure the coast was clear, and there was nothing but a messy house. We called a bunch of people that we knew were at the party to tell them what happened and asked who could have done it. It was someone in attendance for sure. There were tons of people that I didn't even know, and me being intoxicated didn't help me remember the possibilities. Back in 2007, flip phones didn't have locks on them, so it was easy for someone to use a stranger's phone. But whoever it was knew my name to call me on Josie's phone. To this day, I have no idea who it was or what their intentions were.